mate. Can I call you back? I'm just on hold to Trade Radio.
I think you're going to want to take this call.
What's happened?
If you had to guess, what do you reckon?
Nothing is beyond... I don't know. Gunston, good news?
I mean, he is looking to sign, just not with us.
Okay, wow. Oh, well, all aboard Fergie.
This podcast curse of ours is inescapable, isn't it? I mean, our track record with recording right before some massive news is broken.
Yeah, we should be paid not to record by the club.
It is truly something else. But anyway, I thought I'd let you know, and the listeners are going to understand that there's not much we can do about it. I just think it's pretty hilarious at this point.
Yeah. Oh, Jack took his time.
He did. What's it going to be like at the PCM?
Yeah, you thought he might announce that he was staying. Well, anyway, I'm off, fellas.
Well, listeners will hear all about that in the episode they're about to hear.
All right, enjoy.
Hawks win it through McDonough. It's a long kick to the top of the square. Heads and Fellows shoved her out of the way. Just needs to get boot to ball and snaps it through. Fellows takes off Antoine. Oh, little one-handed pick up and then spins around the corner. That's fantastic stuff. Delivers back to McCourt, who's going to put it out in front of her teammate. And taking it is Gilroy and streaming ahead. Eileen Gilroy opens up the angle and the Hawks are in front. Swans, they need a mark. The Hawks finally get that winning feeling. Sparks wild celebrations. They feel like they can conquer the world.
Yes, indeed, history was made at Punt Road Oval with Hawthorn recording their first ever AFLW win. It was a good news story in a week Hawks fans sorely needed it. A series of allegations rocking the footy world. We'll get to all that, plus a bit of trade and Peter Crimmon's medal chat right here on the Hawk Talk podcast. My name is Nick Mason, and 'tis great to see our women in brown and gold get a win on the board.
I nearly flicked it off.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it was diabolically bad. That was some of the worst footy we've produced all year in that first quarter. There's no doubt about that.
First quarter was just awful. And then they didn't kick a goal after that, Sydney. Very foreboding.
It was the start of a nightmarish weekend for the Bloods. I mean, it was a demoralising first term. We gave up a 4-goal head start to the Swans, and just the effort was deplorable. Just no intensity. For a team that should be desperate to snap a 4-game losing streak, there was just no hunger whatsoever.
So what happened? The hairdryer treatment at quarter time, is that really what worked? The old-fashioned...
Well, it might have contributed to it.
Rock them to their core?
Well, I think it's the first time that Bet Goddard, at least visibly on the field, has whipped that out. But it appeared to have some effects, because that almighty spray, it sparked them into action. What unfolded from there was a pretty gripping contest. The Hawks worked hard to get back into it, restricted the Swans, as you say, to just 5 points after quarter time. The goal to snatch the lead was... Yeah. By contrast, some of the best footy we've seen from our Hawks team all year.
Glorious. And then the double fist celebration.
That's right. Yeah, straight down the barrel. Excellent stuff from Gilroy. It started with a one-handed pick-up from Fellows at half-back. We'll get to her in a sec. She had a magnificent game too. On to McCourt, who delivered to Gilroy, who put it through and took a bounce, even though she was instructed not to, apparently.
Really?
Bet Goddard absolutely told her off to not bounce it. And when you see how she bounces it, I can see why.
Yeah. The camera angle wasn't conducive to seeing exactly how she did it at the time, but it was awkward.
Yeah, it was a one-handed bounce with a lot of elevation on that arm. And in the wet, because it wasn't ideal conditions for a bounce.
The ground,
yeah, but it all worked out for Aileen Gilroy, who's fast become one of my favourite players of this outfit. Absolutely sublime goal, our best player all year. Let's talk about the premier player, though, the true highlight of the game. That's Jasmine Fleming.
Rising Star nomination. Well earned. Because she's strung together a few great games.
She has. Arguably a week too late, this one. She could have easily had it against the Bulldogs in abhorrent conditions the week before, but turned up to play again 16 disposals, 10 tackles, 4 clearances, and just has the makings of a superstar of the competition.
Absolutely. You can build a team around her, and she can attract talent to the club as well.
I think so. You've got to keep in mind as well, it's mind-blowing to think that she's only 17. Like, that is crazy. She's got such a bright future ahead of her, and so a Rising Star nomination is certainly very fitting. We have nailed that draft.
Did you say hello to Damien while you were there?
I didn't see Damien. I imagine he was there.
Okay. No, he definitely was. He was on the coverage.
Oh, there you go. Well, the commentary pointed out that Jasmine Fleming took a good slips catch, which was a nice piece of commentary, I thought, and it was a good mark. Talia Fellows, we mentioned before, 3 goals, and her efforts to get our second goal on the board, I felt was an indication that something may have shifted. Because I was over the other side of the ground. I couldn't see what was apparently an almighty spray from Beck Goddard, and my first inkling that maybe we were back in the hunt was Fellows chasing after this ball and getting the goal. That sparked our intensity and our physicality. I felt that lifted after that goal. 9 touches and 4 tackles and 3 goals to Talia Fellows.
Normally that'd be enough, wouldn't it, to get the Rising Star norm?
No, not this time, apparently. Not this time. Jasmine Fleming was sensational, so she had strong competition there.
But Fellows is amazing talent.
Yeah, well, wasn't she tipped as the most improved? She won some VFLW award. It's on the tip of my tongue at the moment, but she was recognised really recently as one of Casey's best players, and Casey had a fantastic season too. So definitely an exciting talent. And we've got Aileen Gilroy as well. I wanted to give a shout out to, and Caitlin Ashmore, 2 of my favourites. 2 speedsters that routinely ignite things for this side when we really need it. Quick, crafty, creative. They had 8 and 9 touches apiece. Gilroy with 6 inside 50s. I thought was worth noting.
Yeah, they're very quick on the transition, and it's beginning to work. There were a couple of times they hit up leads that resulted in goals. Yeah,
less panic kicks, which I like, which is a credit to
more
them.
More space. Well, they've managed to create space in the forward line and use it to their advantage.
I think it's telling that something might have shifted, because there was a lot of pressure on the team in this game, especially when they...
Well, there was expectation, really.
Well, expectation. They gave up that kind of lead. This was one instance in which those bad habits didn't reassert themselves. So maybe there's a bit of maturity creeping in. Maybe there's some development there. I guess we'll see that, or not, against the Eagles. It'll be a very intriguing clash coming up at the end of this week. Akech McKerchuit, I thought she was a standout too. Made some mistakes, such as playing on after a ripper mark with only 1:40 on the clock for the game. That was right in front of where I was.
It was a great mark, though.
Oh, no, sensational.
The umpire could have definitely intervened, because they're a bit slow to the whistle.
Yeah, look, I thought it was holding the ball. I thought it was really unfortunate that she played on. But, look, she had some really important touches too. 13 touches in all, and gave us some drive when the game was on the line. A game-high 411 metres gained, in fact, and made the team of the week.
It's the making of the football club, really, though, isn't it, this game?
Potentially, yeah. It's good for the spirit.
To come back like that, to just win, it felt so good as supporters. Yep. And there were so many players that really powered through, right through to the end, especially Lucy Wiles, who's just taken on far greater workload than she would have expected to at the start of the year.
Well, speaking of Casey players, Lucy Wales from Casey as well. Injuries have left her to handle the bulk of the ruck duties, as you say, and she's done it wonderfully well. Dominated in the ruck in this instance. A game-high 23 hit-outs to go with 11 disposals, 4 tackles and 4 marks, one of which helped seal a result, mind you, on defensive 50. And I couldn't help but notice she finished the game with a Ben McAvoy-style bandage around the head.
Yeah, having gone unmentioned as Big Boy with Talia Fellows, we still managed to fit Ben McAvoy in at the end there.
That's right, yeah. There's a couple of Big Boy mentions in a roundabout way. We also had a debutant on this occasion, Emily Everest. A quiet game on the stat sheet, but when I watched back that final quarter, she withstood some immense pressure in that final term and had a couple of goal-saving moments, so not a bad way to make your debut, really contributing in a big way to this historical win.
They did keep their head under enormous pressure, the defenders, in those last moments. There's a bit of luck there too, but...
Oh, look, maybe a little bit, but the fact of the matter is they came back from such a large deficit, which in AFLW... contextually, that's a win. Sydney got out to easily a winning margin, and I didn't see there was a way back for them, and they stunned everyone.
So what was the noise like when the siren went?
Pretty great. Yeah, the scenes were fantastic. And, it was a little bit emotional as well with the players, coming to the fence as well to thank everyone. And I couldn't help but notice right where I was standing, the race sisters just with tears in their eyes, like proud mothers. And, because they've been riding this since forever.
Yeah.
There's so much invested in this.
I was so disappointed when our initial applications were turned down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this has been a long road to this first win, and now we've made history. That's done. That's in the books now. Our first ever AFLW win. A long time coming, and look forward to seeing what they can produce at Skybus Stadium this week. Out in Frankston, mate, if you don't mind.
Against West Coast?
Yes, that's right.
The unlikely hour of 6:10 p.m. on a Friday.
That's right. I'll be there. I'm expecting good things. I think not only from what we showed against Sydney, but looking at West Coast's form, I'm not sure they're that much chop. I mean, they've won 2 games. They've beaten the Giants, who got absolutely poleaxed against the Crows. I mean, they managed 1 behind for the game and lost by almost 100 points, which was a record margin.
Wow.
West Coast also beat Port Adelaide, who are another expansion club, who are starting to hit their straps now. But
do we get to play Port Adelaide?
We do. I think we play them after West Coast from memory.
Put that down. That's another win.
There you go. Well, actually, I think bar Brisbane, the rest of our fixture is against bottom half sides.
Brisbane.
Yeah, Brisbane's going to be tricky. It's going to be
$2 favourite for the premiership.
Yeah. So that could be a tricky one, but I back us in. I back us in this week against West Coast. I'll be out there at Skybus Stadium. Very much looking forward to that. It was what we needed after a tough week as Hawthorn supporters. The moral fibre of the club questioned.
They questioned the whole ethic of the club. Yeah,
it kind
whether
of,
it's still a family club,
yes,
etc.
Yeah, it kind of recontextualize one of the proudest eras we've ever had as a club. Does it take the gloss off?
They tried to do that, faded into the shadows. Yeah, they did. I'm talking about the media.
Yeah, I know you are. Yeah. No, absolutely. There's a question of how much we actually go over this, because it's been a week.
It has.
The story has been much publicised, so I don't want to retread exactly where it began, because I feel like everyone's across it. What we can do is go over where it's at now.
Well, you did an extensive talk through with the boys of Hawks Insiders.
Yes, yeah, we had an online space, and I feel it was a really useful forum, because the fact was it had been a big couple of days, and supporters feeling a lot of different...
were you still waiting to hear from Fagan and Clarkson?
I feel like we had official statements by then,
yeah.
From memory. It's been a big week. But yeah, people were feeling a lot of different feelings, and yeah, it was necessary to talk it through. But here's where we're at now. This is from the Herald Sun today. Brisbane coach Chris Fagan has hired a top legal team in a bid to clear his name in the Hawthorn racism bombshell. Fagan and Clarkson were allegedly named in Hawthorn's review of its treatment of First Nations players. Reports of their alleged interactions have been damning, and the AFL is working to establish a panel to investigate the claims. Now, as we sort of referred to then, both Clarkson and Fagan have vehemently denied all allegations.
And that's unsurprising to me.
And unsurprising that, here this article says Fagan's hired a top legal team. You'd imagine Clarkson's doing the same thing.
Half of the course.
Mobilising his people to mount a defence, because it's pretty serious stuff that came out.
Called into question their continued career, their past career, their character as an individual in the game.
Absolutely. If this stuff's found to be true, then that's them done. They're out of footy, you would say. They're certainly not coaching Brisbane and North Melbourne respectively. And
well, I've already heard from several media pundits that they shouldn't be in the role again.
I feel like that's jumping to conclusions.
I agree.
Because we need this investigation. And that ties into what we're about to say. This article does continue. The First Nations families who have made allegations against ex-Hawthorn coaches have serious reservations about being interviewed as part of an independent investigation into the claims. The families involved want to drive change and force accountability for what they see as serious issues at Hawthorn, but believe they have already told Hawthorn review author Phil Egan and ABC journalist Russell Jackson their stories in graphic detail. The report handed to the AFL has been corroborated in part by a Hawthorn assistant coach.
So they're unwilling to enter into the continued investigation.
Which surprises me, and I don't feel as though that's helpful.
Well, yeah, it will draw people to some fairly aggressive conclusions.
Yeah, well, let's just say this. It's not helpful for anyone. It's not helpful for any party in this story. And
Russell Jackson would not be feeling great about that decision, I would imagine.
I get that they don't want to participate, but the fact is, you can't abandon this story now.
This was always coming back to you.
I suppose I'm somewhat surprised that there was seemingly no foresight that Clarkson and Fagan were not going to take this lying down. Like that, they're going to fight for their names and their careers. You can't drop these kinds of bombshells and expect there to be nothing in reply. And they do deserve a right of reply. This is the thing. They do deserve an investigation. I don't think the outlook is so great. I'm inclined to believe the interviewees, because who would make this up and for what gain? However, we can't jump to conclusions. They do deserve an investigation, and part of that investigation is having the testimonies of the people that were interviewed in the first place. They have to be involved.
Yeah, so we're in a bit of a no man's land right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's unclear as to how this will resolve.
Yeah, a complex story has become more complicated, and yeah, we're no closer to discovering what exactly happened. It's still, unfortunately, it's still a he said, she said game. And these coaches have been... And
it may never get beyond that, to be quite honest.
Well, who really knows? But for the time being, Clarkson stepped away from North, Fagan from Brisbane. Burt and Newbold have stepped away from their respective positions, so the ramifications of this story are ongoing, and it's the kind of thing that needs to be worked through quickly, but won't be. Absolutely won't be.
Well, I mean, the solutions to all these issues that have been occurring in footy for a very long time is not going to be resolved before the start of next season.
No.
And there needs to be some kind of dramatic overhaul across the AFL.
Yep, Eddie Betts said as much, and he's completely right. If people think that this is limited to Hawthorn, they are kidding themselves, and that is not
all limited to First Nations players.
Well, Yep.
The power the clubs have over individuals when they're trying to start or get into the game or be selected is almost like, if you're not going to do it, someone else will do it. Is basically what they tell you.
Yeah. It does bring into light that damning question of like, at what cost success? Because if some of what's alleged to have happened is true, I mean, my goodness, what are we doing? Should we really be chasing a premiership cup with that kind of sacrifice?
Having said that, I find it very hard to believe of both Clarkson and Fagan from what I know of them, and I mean, we haven't experienced that much of them. We don't know them intimately. But
it's so hard to believe.
Yeah.
It's so shocking. And I don't want to believe it. This is the thing. It's the honest truth. I don't want to believe that this is true. But you can't help but think, well, I don't understand what people have to gain by lying about this.
And that's why you continue an investigation. And if that's thwarted, because, I don't know, whatever their reasons, they'll still have to investigate, but without them.
Everyone at this point has to keep an open mind.
Well, you don't have to. That's your prerogative.
Well, I would encourage people to. It's an open investigation. I'm not going to damn Clarkson, Fagan, etc. to one fate already.
Geez, some people were quick to, though.
Well, I don't blame that. It's disturbing. The stuff that was published was a really disturbing and sad and upsetting read.
Firstly, I was very disappointed in our own administration for not getting any input from Clarkson and Fagan at all before they handballed or hot potatoed the document to AFL House, and then it's leaked from there.
Yeah, I mean, Fagan and Clarkson took issue with not being consulted to begin with.
I think that's thoroughly right of them to take issue there.
Well, I don't know about that, because Hawthorn conducted this... What would you call it? I'm overusing the word investigation. But
they asked Phil Egan to go out and
to liaise with First Nations people.
Who'd previously been at the club.
But they weren't to know that this was what they were going to uncover. And they weren't to know that it was going to pertain to those specific individuals. And so they couldn't have been consulted. You don't know what you don't know.
Well, no, they had it for 2 weeks.
Oh, so you're talking afterwards.
So Hawthorn had it for 2 weeks before they handed it over to AFL House. And in that period, they did nothing. And then they've seen it get leaked.
Yeah. Well,
and it's brought about tremendous embarrassment and lack of...
This is something that we've discussed off mic. Can you recall a leakier time in the club's history?
I mean, you can't tell when it was leaked, whether it was at Hawthorn or at the AFL House or, the timing was fascinating. Grand final week. But, Russell Jackson has very good form at getting these stories out.
He does, yeah. It's a story we're going to keep a close eye on as it progresses. Anyway, we do need to move on to... I know, right? Yeah, it's hard to move on, but PCM, we need to make our predictions. Sicily's winning it, I agree.
Yep.
How about your runner-up?
Newcombe.
Yep, I agree with that too.
Is it too early for Newcombe to poll?
Not at all. Not at all. Third place.
That's where it gets difficult.
That's right.
I'm going Hardwick.
Yeah, see...
You said Jom, didn't you?
No. It's between Hardwick or Moore for me.
Ooh.
And I think just to provide a point of interest...
Tom Mitchell.
No Tom Mitchell. No, he's not getting close to it this year. Too much competition. I'm going to say Dylan Moore, just to be a point of difference from you.
Best first-year player?
That's tough as well. Connor McDonald.
Wasn't tough, was it?
Well, it could be Ward. Ward's been fantastic too.
Not as good, though.
Well, Connor McDonald's, I felt at some stage...
There were points during the season where they wanted to drop him.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And they couldn't bear to drop him.
Well, yeah, they kept on playing him. I think for that alone...
and he performed, even though he was obviously... The tank was showing E.
Yes. Yeah.
Empty tank and...
I think Ward and McDonald were both great in their own right, but that is what separates them, is McDonald simply couldn't be dropped.
Oh, now that is unkind. Most consistent, and you've got Chadley Wingo.
There's nothing on the page, ladies and gentlemen. There's a blank space that I've encouraged Tiz to write in, and neither of us have put our answers down yet, so we're doing this on the fly.
Because you could watch, look over and copy. All right, most promising is next.
Most promising?
Is it number 9? Probably not.
Not off this year. Last year was more promising than this year. This year,
this is true.
This year was a bit.
Did he get it last year?
From memory, I think he might have.
Back to back.
Can you win back to back? Most promising. It seems like you shouldn't be able to win it back to back. Because at that point you've stalled.
Well, yeah, I guess you can't take best first year player and most promising though, can you?
Well, it makes sense, wouldn't it?
It would. Surely most promising, if he doesn't get the Peter Crimmins, is Newcombe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah.
Most consistent. You said Chad.
No, my default for this one is always Scrimshaw, but Dylan Moore's got to be a really good chance.
That is a very good call.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Dylan Moore on that one.
I'll go with you on that. And best clubman is Dylan Moore.
Okay, I'm going to say McAvoy.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it's always odd best clubman. You can't... we're too outside to know.
Oh, yeah, this is the hardest one to pick. There's no doubt about that.
I always get this wrong when I turn up at the PCM. That's the one that, cuts me out of the betting.
Well, can we talk about the grand final very briefly before we get to the trade stuff?
Yeah, go for it.
You went.
I did.
And... Didn't you text me on the day saying there wasn't much of a queue? I was like, oh, that's good. You said, yeah, only 400 metres. So you queued up 400 metres for tickets.
Serpentine.
Okay, all right.
Serpentine, 400 metres.
All right. So how was your day in the end?
Well, best on ground, Robbie, definitely, by the length of the straight. And then Abby Holmes stole his look.
Okay.
And that was about the whole day for me, really, and there's enough said about the game.
Isaac Smith, how are we feeling about that?
It was like Valentine's Day.
How do you mean?
And my ex came back. He was the best. He was the best on ground, and I loved it.
Yeah. Look, here's the thing. People
I just couldn't deny it, because I love him. I hate the fact he went to Geelong.
Yeah.
I hate the fact that he was the instrument that won them a premiership. Mm-hmm. But my admiration for the guy overwhelms all that. And the fact that the Norm didn't go to a Geelong player. It went to a Hawthorn great.
It went to a Hawthorn legend.
It just sort of underlines how great Isaac is.
Look, we've joked a lot on this podcast, but people should know I'm in the exact same boat as you. He was one of my favourite Hawks when he was at the club. And so it was upsetting to see him leave.
He's a top quality guy too.
Well, he seems like it. And so it really hurt when he left and went to Geelong of all places. But sometimes you just got to give credit where it's
Tip
due.
your hat.
I mean, this is a guy that left Hawthorn.
I feel exactly like that West Coast bloke who gave him the high five.
That's right, 2015.
Yeah.
On the boundary.
I feel exactly like that.
Yeah, it's a perfect way to put it because, like, he left Hawthorn and, you know, whether it was for his family, he's in the twilight of his career, wants a bit more premiership success.
He's the only one that could run in the side.
He had reasons to go there, and he wanted success. He makes it to grand final day. He wins the Norm Smith. You got to tip your lid. You got to say, fair enough, mate. You had a mission in mind. Mission accomplished. What a great story. He was dominant on the ground, and you can't take that away from him. At a certain point, even if you don't like him, you have to respect that.
We love him.
Well, I do. I know a lot of Hawk supporters feel differently.
I don't like him in those colours.
Well, exactly.
But the bloke,
yeah,
ripper. And what a footballer. I think he's won a premiership, basically. What is he? 4 from 10 seasons?
Well, he's done a Cyril. He's won 4 flags. He's got a Norm Smith.
Wow. I'd never thought of that.
Puts it into perspective, doesn't it?
Gee whiz.
I mean, we're not going to say that they're the same colour.
You know what he hasn't?
They're very different players.
You know, did he lose a grand final?
I think he might have. Shoot me a look like that. Well, the game was a non-event, and that was annoying. And I'm not annoyed at Geelong for that. I'm annoyed at Sydney.
Oh, you can't blame Geelong.
You can't blame Geelong. They were sensational. Sydney just never put up a shot. They just.
I wouldn't have said they were sensational. You only play as well as you're allowed.
Okay, well that's true. Yeah, Sydney didn't really do much.
There were 4 players for Sydney who really put their hand up and said, you know, we can do something. And none of them were in the forward line.
Just on that point that you said before, there was a goal I remember. It was Dangerfield's, one of his most arsey goals he's ever kicked in his career. It was at the City end. And I do remember saying, I was watching it at the pub and I was just like, I said aloud, I'm like, that is maybe the worst defensive effort I've ever seen.
Right, yeah.
Sydney just allowed that to happen. It made Dangerfield look like Harlem Globetrotters stuff.
Last 3 grand finals, all losses.
Yeah.
Makes 2012 worse, gotta say.
We don't talk about that. It's all right. We're on the good timeline. Even though Geelong won.
We are on the good timeline.
We're on the good timeline. Even though our three-peat might have this dark shadow, we're still on the good timeline. It's still good. Everything's fine.
And if you're really, feeling it, how Geelong have won, just go up and mention to a Collingwood supporter that, you'd only beaten Sydney.
Yeah, it's good fun, that.
You probably would have won.
Yeah, that's the bonus. Anyway, a non-event of a grand final, and we move on. We need to get to some trade whispers, as I said. Now, we did have news just before hitting record, which is it's nice for us, because usually we get news after we record.
Well, we did put this question out there on the last record. What is Jekka doing and what is Brockman doing? And they've signed. Yes,
according to Mark McGowan, both Tyler Brockman and Emerson Jekka have inked 1-year deals, which is fantastic news. A bit of scuttlebutt about maybe Tyler Brockman being used to secure a higher pick from West Coast, maybe, get pick 2 off them, but that's not going to be happening. Jack Saunders and Seamus Mitchell still without deals for the time being.
Yeah.
We might be losing a superstar to a rival club, though. We might be losing Tom Mitchell to Collingwood. This is from Sam Edmund on Tom Mitchell's destination. I'm told it's well down the path to being Collingwood. In fact, speaking to people around this one, they go so far as to say it's almost done and dusted. We know he's got a year to run on his contract at Hawthorn. We know he's exploring a trade. Hawthorn are happy with that. He wants to play for Collingwood, and I think he will get to Collingwood.
Well, if they had Tom Mitchell, they would have won.
Well played. How are we feeling about it?
Don't you believe that?
Well,
they're contested possessions if they'd been a little bit better in that first half.
I know you don't want Tom Mitchell to leave. I'm a bit more.
I just see it as much harder. To climb the ladder next year. But he's not going to be there for much longer, and it does make sense to give other players more midfield time. But do we have someone else in mind who's going to be a backup? Or?
I don't know. I wonder what we get back from this deal. I'm not really sure. What's Tom Mitchell worth? I would say that's debatable, but. Good thing we have 12 hours per day of trade radio to have people enlighten us on that.
Well, I know your ears are bleeding from it, so...
I started with it this morning, and at a certain point, I was like, what am I doing? If I have to hear about Brodie Grundy one more time, I'm going to throw my phone across the room. Anyway, Hawthorn to inherit the Meek, perhaps.
Well, no, that is interesting about Brodie Grundy, because the Collingwood people want to keep him now that De Goey won't sign the clause that he can't.
To not be a dick, basically. Yeah. That's what it is.
But the AFLPA have come out and supported that clause shouldn't be in his contract.
Well, I think there are... I imagine there are certain behavioural clauses in most contracts, but there might be a little something extra for his. Is that the insinuation?
Whatever.
That's what they're trying to do?
I don't think anyone's leaked the contract, so we can't really know. But
no.
In general terms, they've said there shouldn't be any, which is quite strange, because I'm pretty sure Barry Hall had one.
Well, again, it comes back to that question of what price success. Like, what are we willing to do in order to dictate terms to players to win premierships? For De Goey's case, you got to say it's a relevant question.
But De Goey, it's not really a choice, mate. It's St Kilda or Collingwood.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Or
Essendon.
Oh, yeah.
Don't count them out.
Nah, they're always there, the dumpster.
We need to talk about the Meek. The Meek could be coming to Hawthorn. Fremantle ruckman Lloyd Meek is keen to get to Hawthorn, although the Dockers remain eager to retain the contracted big man. This is according to AFL.com.au.
Yeah, that just says we want more than you're prepared to offer us.
Yeah, Fremantle see a way for Meek to play at the top level at their club, even if they do land, here's the word, want away demon Luke Jackson.
Oh, thank goodness we're seeing that phrase again.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, want-away demon.
It'll soon be a want-away word, because we never see it at any other time.
Okay, so they've got Meek, they've got Jackson, there's Lobb, and then there's another ruckman there already, Sean Darcy.
Oh, yes.
So please show me how they're going to play all four of them.
Is Darcy rumoured to leave, or am I...
Yeah, a few of them want out.
Yeah.
Lobb wants out, Darcy's thinking about it, and Meek.
Yeah, not ideal for Freo. I can see why they'd want to hang on to Meek.
And Griffin Logue's already off to North.
Yeah, and Akers is probably gone, but...
This is the big fella. We saw him play against Box Hill, and he was the difference. Jack Bowes, or Jack Bowes.
Let's go Bowes.
Okay, like the stereo.
Clearly, we've watched him very closely.
I mean, you said to me he's a young talent. I said, isn't he 24?
Yeah, I know.
And
I couldn't tell you much. Look, once that was on the table and we were linked to him, I started looking up highlights. And I did have to admit to myself, I don't know anything about this kid, really.
10? Well, he pulled apart the Box Hill midfield.
Yeah, well, that's the most I know about him that I watched.
He's never taken it by the scruff of the neck for Gold Coast, and yet they still, they want to get rid of him.
Well, they need the salary. They need the salary.
How?
I know.
Is Jack Lukosius? Does he own the club? What's going on? That other bloke's leaving. How can they possibly have a problem?
Yeah.
Rankine is going.
Yeah, but they've got to protect their other assets and they've got to keep them on good money. So apparently they need to get a lot more salary free. So he's got a contract for the next 2 years at the Suns and is reportedly worth more than $1 million overall because they kept on back-ending it, kicking the can down the road to your face.
Do we really want this?
It would come packaged potentially with pick 7.
Okay, all right.
So that's what we want.
And what do we do?
Well, I'm not too sure.
Pick 6, do we? Or do we have 6 and 7?
I think we'd be looking at having pick 6 and 7.
No.
So that's
why...
That's
a dream trade.
Yes.
What are we giving them?
Well, that's a good question. But the Suns aren't in a position of leveraging much because they absolutely
need
the money.
Surely they take our pick 6.
I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. Look, it might not even come to that. We're not the only club interested. Geelong are interested. So, I mean, reigning premiers.
Many of them retiring. I don't know how they keep that many talented blokes on the list.
But that's about it. That's about all the trade news we have at the moment. I mean, we are really at the start of all this. So, Amon, he's locked and loaded.
Still keen.
Yeah, he'll still come to Hawthorn. And that's about all we have to report right now.
It's a bit disappointing we didn't get a look in for Tanner Brun.
He'd be feeling pretty good about his choice at the moment, I'd say, going to the reigning premiers.
But he was, he's following Sam Mitchell on Instagram. I thought he was a lot.
Oh, God. Anyway, on that note, we do need to wrap up. We'd really appreciate it if you could spare a few seconds to rate or review our show over on Apple Podcasts. If you haven't already, it really does make a difference in helping other diehard Hawks fans find the show. And we also want to give a shout out to the ever-expanding community building around our show. Fans over on Twitter, that's almost 3.8 thousand followers over on Twitter now. Facebook also doing well, 2.4. Instagram, we're building a nice community there too. Thanks so much for getting around us. If you haven't joined us, do come aboard. Simply search Hawk Talk Podcast on whichever social platform you prefer. Lastly, as always, we'd like to extend a massive thanks to our proud, passionate and paid-up Patreon subscribers who have thrown their support behind the Hawk Talk Podcast. Now, we've got an extra special shout-out to a couple of new subscribers who have just come aboard. Welcome aboard, Matthew and Christian. Thanks so much for signing up. Now, a bit of a special treat for some of our Patreon subscribers. It's a great time to subscribe now because we've got some sweet bonus content available. Our post-season player gradings, 2 parts of a 3-part series online right now for your enjoyment. That's subscriber-only content. So if you're keen to have a listen to that and all our other past, present, and future bonus episodes, check out all the details at patreon.com/HawkTalkPod.
Yeah, we've got to record that after dinner. It's going to be good.
Get a bit of steakiness. And then get the red Sharpie out. Get a grade in. Part 1 was good. Part 1 was really fun. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into the second third of the list, starting with Lockie Bramble. Plenty to discuss there. Plenty to discuss with the few players after him as well. It's going to be really interesting indeed. For now, though, we'll just leave it there, mate, I reckon. We'll be back very soon. Catch you then. This has been the Hawk Talk Podcast. We are a happy team at Hawthorn.